Hi, this is the WTF SDK character creation tutorial part 2. And now that we have the character animation available to use, we will go back to the character editor proper and start creating our character. So first thing that I do obviously is to create a new character entry. And you will see that the character editor is actually quite involved. There are lots and lots of tags, lots and lots of tabs for when you want to use the character for all these different purposes. For the purpose of this tutorial, we'll basically go through all the things that are required in order to get this character up and running inside the game. Some of the rest of the tabs we will cover in other tutorials as they're necessary, and some others we might not be able to cover at all in the video tutorial, in which case you'll probably want to look up the wiki to find out more about those tabs. So the main tab is the one that we want to work with here. It basically has all the basic information about the character. So to begin, let's give this guy a name. So like a player character, you will need a stats template for all these different NPCs. So I'm just going to create a fairly quick one. And I will scale the stats down to roughly 60% of that of a player, because you do want the NPCs to be weaker, the normal NPCs to be weaker than the player, so that once again the player can take on multiple of them before needing to heal or use restoratives. So I can probably just scale this linearly down. Some stats even need to be lower. So as you can see, this whole stat system is not hard fixed. The numbers are recommended, however you are not required to follow any of it. Certainly it's probably best if you follow the guidelines, since that's how the game is being balanced, but you are by no means bound to use the points system as they are being recommended to you. So that all looks fine. And here, this is when the QXP scale comes into play. Basically, I believe, let me check. The XP scale works so that it roughly takes about 10 to 20 kills, I believe, to level a character. If you leave it at 1.0 scale, that's basically how the game operates in WTF. It's not a bad number per se, but obviously if you want your campaign to last longer or shorter, you can adjust this number, and it will automatically adjust the QXP of this particular stat template. So that all looks good. I'm going to hit OK, and it will actually automatically save the template as well, and automatically select the one that I've been working on. So for animations, I'm going to select the one that I have just created in the last tutorial. And so the level range basically gives you the level range of the character as he appears in the game. So, this might be like a level 2 through 3 NPC as it's being spawned in game. There's also an elite frame, which is being used in WoW, if you know how that works. It's actually only visual, so you can use this frame however you see fit, but by default it's sort of known to indicate a character that is more resilient than normal, so that's probably a good standard to stick with. You can see some of the special properties involved with the character. They're pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe one or two. The spawn behind player property allows an NPC object to spawn behind the player instead of in front of them. What it really does is it usually used for interactive objects like a lever or something that's, you know, the crate that the player can walk through but can destroy. So things that really aren't active objects that the player usually just kind of walks in front of. And now that I've mentioned it, you know, things like levers, anything that has interactivity needs to be declared as a character. Some instruction on how to do those things would probably come inside the wiki and not this video tutorial, which only covers the basics. Let's see. Those two are pretty self-explanatory. So let me quickly also go through the identity panel. Pretty much identical to the one for the playable characters. So in that case, race and class are both standard and fixed, so you have to fill in those two. Redundant, but that's what he is. I guess I can tell it's a vendor. Just a name change. So color adjustment is a pretty interesting thing that you can do to a character. What you can do with a hue change is to completely repurpose a character using the exact same set of animations. So this is sort of a technique for you to save a lot of loading time when you're actually running the game, because a color palette recycled character is not going to take any extra time to run, because it just runs through a hardware filter to create the palette change. And it's sort of a throwback to, you know, an old school technique that you see in Nintendo games, and it technically is used, you know, in WoW too, but obviously not in this obvious of a way. They actually use retextured models. But in this case, we'll stick with the default color, which means hue change of 0. There's other things that you can tune about the character. You can desaturate the character to make it ghost-like. You can adjust brightness to make, you know, a shadowy version of the character, as if you may. Contrast, sort of, that's actually a pretty interesting effect too, but we will not be using that this time. And obviously you can kind of combine the desaturation and the alpha adjustment to create a ghost character, but we will not be doing that this time either. So let's keep all the settings back to default, and we will, well, actually we are kind of out of time here, so we will go through the actions tab in the next tutorial, which is coming right up.